Live from the BoD studios around the country. It is Playin and Slayin, episode 83.
Yay.
Unknown
I don't know.
Worlds.
It's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
Unknown Worlds. That's the title of the episode for reasons unknown to be learned later.
Ooh.
All right. So this episode, we have two very two very special guests that are near and dear friends, fellow gamers, and now game developers, designers, game company owners, Paul and Jen DK of Anvil Games, Ethereum role-playing game. And they're going to join us to talk about a brand new role-playing game that will be launching via BackerKit at GameholeCon. So GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin, middle of October, 17th through the 20th. That's when it'll go live. We have them on to talk about the design process, about the game, about inspirations. So had a very good conversation with them. So really looking forward to sharing that with you all, viewers and listeners, downloaders and friends. So that is the main the guts of episode 83. And we talk about some other stuff. So without further ado, when you're playing and slaying, it is important to stay hydrated. Josh, how are you staying hydrated tonight?
I'm truly hydrating with just regular old water.
H2O.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from like the Waukesha Municipal Water Service? Is it from the ground? Is it from a bottle? Your refrigerator?
The Waukesha water actually comes from Milwaukee now. They
pipe in
right
that Lake Michigan water, yeah.
You got it. So it's delicious.
Cold filtered fish poop and human waste.
You got it.
All right.
Nice. Troy, how are you staying hydrated?
Woo! It's time. Ty, it's time. It's time. It's time. Third Space Oktoberfest is here. It's live.
Beautiful.
It's a good champion of Oktoberfest.
And delicious.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I saw this in the store and
warms my heart. Yeah. I'll be picking some up likely tomorrow now.
And Ty, what do you got?
I have cowboy water. High West whiskey, Rendezvous Rye. Usually it's beer, but when you don't have any beer in the fridge, you go with, a glass of rye whiskey. A couple of ice cubes that have melted, so it's at like the perfect, the perfect drinking temperature and consistency.
Beautiful. That's some serious business. I like it.
Oh, that's tasty. That's tasty. It's like a reward.
Mm-hmm. Job well done.
For more shows like this, check out the Goonhammer Media Network. More info at media.goonhammer.com.
All right, now before we get to the main part of this episode, we like to banter about some things, what we've been playing, hobbying, kickstarting, crowdfunding, the library, all that fun stuff. So without further ado, let's dive in. What have we been playing? Who wants to start? A lot of games, a lot of good games on this list.
Well, go ahead.
I'll knock mine off here real quick because I think the rest are you guys. We've been continuing the school morning game sessions with the kiddos, which is awesome. We eat our breakfast, they get everything ready, and then we have about half hour, 45 minutes where we'll play a game, and it's great. We played Pokemon Labyrinth, which is it's a bunch of tiles, and you're trying to get to your Pokemon. So you get like a stack of the little Pokeballs, and on the underside is one of the Pokemon that are out there, and all the tiles have like either like a straight or a T or an elbow, right? And you can only follow the path. So if they don't meet up, you can't go through, right? And it's kind of like a hedge maze looking kind of thing. And they slide. So like the whole row will slide this way, and then one will fall off. And so then you can slide it in a different way. And so you're trying to move your guy to the Pokemon, but you're playing with, 3, 4 people, whatever.
Keep moving this.
So it keeps sliding around, and so you're moving your guy around to try to get to where you need to go, and it's kind of fun. At first, the kids were getting really frustrated because they're like, "Oh, this moved, and I didn't expect that to move," and so now they're playing a little bit more strategically because there are certain spots that don't move. And so they'll land on those instead, and then watch things slide around, and then so they're picking up all the little tricks, which is kind of it's fun to watch.
There you go.
But yeah, for younger kids, I think it's a great game. For what it's worth. And then we played Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. It's interesting. It's a fun game. I hadn't played it before.
What? Oh, it is Sarah's favorite game.
You just said 5 random words. What?
Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza.
Yes.
So you basically have cards that are a taco, a cat, a goat, a cheese, and a pizza. And then there's gorilla,
gorilla, what's gopher, unicorn, right? Narwhal, right? Yeah.
So you play. So everybody has a hand of cards. You play your card down. And you say taco, and if it is a taco, you slap. Yeah, and you go around. The next
we can do it, Josh. We can do it right now. You can do it. Go ahead. Start.
Taco.
Cat.
And then whoever goat.
Cheese.
Pizza. And
taco.
And if anybody actually plays a taco when you say taco, you slap your hand down on it, and the last person to slap their hand down on it has to take the stack of cards.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
Super
Uno mechanic.
Like spoons.
Yeah, it's kind of like but then you have if the gorilla, then there's these special cards. If the gorilla card comes out, then you gotta go like this, and the last person and then slap. And if they don't do it or whatever, then they take the cards. So it's just a party whatever game, but it's kind of fun because it's funny how like your brain, it's the classic of you're saying something different than what's written on the card, and your brain, it's just like if you show the color blue and try and write red in the color blue, and it like messes your brain. So you think it might be, it is kind of easy, but it'll also it's fun. It's cheap and fun and whatever. And Sarah loves it, but we've played it with adults and everything. And I think it's been around for a while, but it is kind of flies under the radar a little bit. Like,
right.
Yeah. Not everybody's seen it. So
never heard of it.
Yeah.
I hadn't either. And the kids busted it out one morning, and I was like, what is this game? And they're like, oh yeah, Emily got it for whatever. And I was like, okay, well, let's play it. So super easy to learn, super fun, like party game, takes 10 minutes, right? Very fun.
Taco Cat Goat
Cheese
Pizza.
Yeah. All right.
Are you hungry? Are you hungry now? Is that
And then a smattering of other games, but those were the 2 highlights. So you guys can continue on.
Well, when the Brewhouse gaming location was closed, got together with Troy and John to continue our journey into the Deepwood, Oathsworn. So we played, I think, the 5th chapter.
So.
I think chapter 5 in Oathsworn, which was pretty cool. The fight was unique. Yet again, another completely different boss fight than any of the others from a mechanic standpoint. And we escaped by the skin of our teeth. I think one character with 1 hit point as we defeated the enemy. So
we were literally it didn't feel too bad because I think we got to the end and we're like, all right, we think we have we had a pretty legit plan to kill him, but we're like, if we don't end this turn, we don't like, we would have had like, because all the characters were down to like 1 hit point, and we were not going to survive another turn around that. But a lot of fun. Again, I like the story part of there's always the story part in the beginning, which always has kind of different mechanics to kind of set it up. And we were we in the city again?
We were in the next town.
The next big town. Yeah.
We opened our tavern. We were granted kind of a place to call our own, and then of course there's some kind of menace to the city that we had to go and root out. So
it's been good. Again, nice narrative. It's a really cool, like the first part, how we've had the narrative, and I don't want to spoil it, but how we've started out in one town and had an adventure and gone through some of the deep wood and ended up in a different place. And again, it's funny, right, as you going through it, but some cool interactions with the town guard just to kind of get into the city on things like that. And then the cool part, I don't know, it's right. In some ways, Ty, right? It's like a D&D session, but all right. It's your classic, like, hey, you're going to do the role-playing part, and then there's always a big boss battle, right? It is part of your whatever thing. So it is kind of cool.
I mean, Oathsworn continues to just be a great marriage of like a campaign, story-driven game and a really tight kind of tactical miniature combat in moving around the hexes and navigating for the boss fight. At every play, I think the more comfortable we get with the mechanics and the characters, the better it gets. As you're kind of plotting how you make it all work.
But I like how they continue to surprise us with the monsters and the AI and the rules. Like they always like, what? It's gonna do what? It's gonna do what? And so because it's not like, again, sometimes a lot of times, right, you'll have an AI that's kind of predictable or not smart, or you can metagame the AI, right, in some ways. And there's some basic rules, but it still feels like we get surprised by whatever this thing's gonna do through the battle, and we have to adjust and tag, which really it gives it a good thing. So again, we've raved about Oathsworn. I'm super excited. It's always nice when we can get it out, and we make Ty paint every once in a while. So paint ahead of us. That's the only hard part.
I've got the next boss fight on the table. I need to prime it and then hopefully get that painted. And then when Josh was available, we came over to play Frosthaven, which we continue to get further into that game, and encounter by encounter, I think we're on kind of all new characters. Where the town's expanded to the point where we're really starting to get some of the fun stuff. We're following one of the quest arcs, really, really enjoying it. So, I mean, that game continues to. I think continues to deliver the story. It feels like the characters around the town that send you on the quests, we're starting to get a little further in, and we've still got a few major quest lines to go. So I don't know, like there's no traditional sense of how far you are into it, but it feels like we're probably half, if not over halfway into the meat of the campaign. So continues to be fun. It's nice to offset it, with Oathsworn or with other stuff sometimes, but trying to get to that back, I think about monthly, if not, a couple of times if we can, but summer was so busy. So hopefully fall and winter, we can get a little heavier back into it.
And it is also super nice to just leave it set up, right? Like, having to not set it up each time, like at least the most of it. Being
able to finish a scenario, kind of put it away and get the next one kind of ready, with what we need kind of as our wrap up, versus putting it all back into the box and unpacking. It's nice just to kind of leave it in this steady state of ready to play. For sure. Although it does prevent me from at home, like going solo through like 7 or 8 scenarios. And
it's also a good thing, though, for the rest of us.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had so Landon, my kiddo, his birthday was recently. So my brother Tom and his girlfriend Jenna came over, hung out, and we were trying to think of something light and quick. So we actually played Codenames. Hadn't played Codenames in a while, but got that out and had, you know, a permanent clue giver and kind of 2 teams and played that. And Landon was having fun. And then Landon's like, "Can I be the clue giver?" And we're like, "Yeah, okay." And he did not understand the whole like blue card, red card, and was giving us clues that made no sense for like what he was trying to do. And then he's like, "Oh, I was trying to get you to guess the wrong ones." We're like, "That is why you're not the clue giver, buddy." But yeah, so I played some Codenames. It had been a long time since that had been something I played, so that was fun just to get out again.
And was it the vanilla? I always say vanilla.
Yeah,
the original version.
Yeah, just the base one. Tom and I both hard node the Harry Potter Codenames because we don't know anything. It would be like
I think there's a Marvel one too. Like I think a super. That's the only one I think I've played. I might have played. I mean,
another one
as opposed to the other one,
likely would not get much of. But yeah,
there's a Codenames like After Dark or something, like a kind of sassy one, like, you know, spicy one. That I picked up on super sale somewhere. I haven't opened it up yet, but I thought
Josh is there playing Codenames After Dark by himself.
Right.
By himself, right? Yeah.
Himself clues.
I thought it could be a fun party game to bring somewhere.
Like, "Oh, Josh, you're so naughty."
Yeah.
And I was like, who would I actually play this with, though? I don't know. So anyway,
next weekender.
Yeah, I'll bring it. All right, done.
All right, Troy. What
cool.
the heck is this?
I put it in games played, but I haven't played it yet. Because it's a board game I want to talk about. So call out Neil from work.
Yeah, Neil from work.
So Neil's like, we're in the cafeteria and he's like, "Hey, do you like kind of drafting games, whatever?" And he talks me through. So I'll hold out Comic Hunters. It had a lot of hype, or at least some hype, I think, around Gen Con that I had kind of heard about, but they just kind of dismissed it because I'm like, it feels that. But then Neil kind of talks me through. He's like, "Oh, it's like you're basically trying to collect comics, right? It's kind of around that. It's you kind of have 4 different rounds, you want to call it, or stages, and each of those has a different kind of drafting mechanic where you're trying to build your collection of comic books. Like there's a store and a flea market and an auction and then like a convention where you do it. And then at the end, right, you're all the different sets, you get score points. And that's kind of the basic idea around that. And then so that was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then what really sold me is they have the Marvel license. So like this, so even if, and I don't know if people can sell, so every card is an actual cover from a classic comic book. So a lot of the first, like some of them are the number ones, and there's different kinds, like, hey, it's the first appearance of a certain character. And there's 3 kind of stages. So there's like, I'll call it modern age. And then there's like 70s, 80s comic books. And then like some of the 60s silver age. So like 1, 2, and 3. So I kind of went through, it was fun just to kind of pull it out, look through the things, like sleeve the cards. It does have solo rules. So I was actually started to kind of look at that around that. So I'll be interesting. I do want to try and get it to the table because it intrigued me enough. So I gotta give Neil props for, he basically, I told him as he walked me through it and everything else, I'm like, oh, I think you just sold the game to me. And I believe it's a Barnes and Noble exclusive at the moment. I don't know if it's a completely exclusive, but and it's only $25. So, but
It's
I mean, it's
pizza.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the other thing I was like,
come
it's not
come
even
into a play it or slay it segment near you soon as Troy gets us to play it.
Yeah, so it definitely has something. I mean, and it's not. They basically spent all their money, I think, on the license and the cards, because that's really all it is a board and cards, and then they kind of have some, the other components are some fairly cheap little counters, but you don't need anything like that. Or nowadays, I guess I would 3D print my own new ones or something like that. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm excited about it. And it was one of, a game that was fun like I said, just to go and sleeve the cards, because it was just really cool to see all this original kind of comic book art from basically from now back into the 60s
I know
for a lot of things. So
a couple of guys named Matt and Barry that would probably like to see that at GameholeCon.
For sure.
Yeah, maybe it goes in the bag. And again, I imagine they're setting themselves up because this is mostly Avengers type comic books. So I imagine there could be an X-Men expansion or something else like that where you add some of the other things in. So it's kind of the classic, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, whatever, are kind of all the different comic things in there. So
Nice.
so cool. So I'll let you out. We'll report back once we kind of hit the table with it. But it looks exciting. Again, for $25. Not I didn't outlay too much, and I feel like I've gotten $10 to $15 worth of enjoyment out of it already. So it's like I haven't even played it yet. So
when the unboxing experience is worth the price of admission, it's a slam dunk. Speaking of unboxing, I'm going to talk through my hobby, and then hopefully you guys have had more luck in the hobby space than I have. So, of course, there's a deadline coming up for a tournament that Bryce and I signed up for, which we've failed, I think, to do this project for the last 2 or 3 of them. But we're trying again. We're going to have a State of the Union tomorrow night, or maybe tonight. Bryce is at a conference in Vegas, and he'll be back to the hotel around 10 o'clock Vegas time. So I might be calling him tonight to kind of have a State of the Union. But I did go and get the box out of the miniatures, found the paints that I'd been using. I kind of started to get it, off ice. I took it out of the deep freeze. And kind of, I feel like, in Westworld, when they go to the cold storage and kind of bring some of the characters out, that's what it felt a little bit like. But we'll see where it goes. So we're both right now. The biggest struggle to my hobby progress with this is we are both really frustrated with where the game itself is. Mm-hmm. And like the hobby and the experience and hanging out with Steve and all the people there is super cool, but like it's really hard to offset the like just complete disinterest that we both have right now in where Age of Sigmar is and where GW's gone with it, and like a litany, so to speak, of reasons why like we're just not big into the game offsets kind of why we want to do this. And I think we're trying to figure out what that means.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if it helps, right? There could be something where you guys just embrace the miniatures, right? Like almost like, and what's cool about the Havoc events, right, is it's AOS light, right? Like it's not like heavy that. And so maybe there's something where you guys can, because I totally get where you're coming from, but it almost might just be like, hey, these are really cool fantasy models that happen to be for this AOS game. And I almost, it's like you guys need to just embrace, I'm going to make these the coolest fantasy models with this idea that we have.
Yeah.
Right? And almost detach it from the game.
There literally came a point a couple months ago, like a month or 2 ago, where we both had to go to Brendan and say, does this list even work? Is it under 1,000 points? Is it over? Because we weren't going to like add to and change the plan, because this list was originally like 2020, 2021. Like it's been a long time for this 1,000 points. And Brennan's like, you should really add this or that. We're like, no, we can't. We're not going to. And he's like, yeah, yours is like 930 points. So I'm like, okay. Like, I don't even care. It's under 1,000. Let's go. And Bryce is like 940 or so. So we're like underpointed. We don't care. Like, we literally don't care about the rules, the game. Like the point. It's just like, and that's what it's been like the last few times we went to even play, was we didn't care about the game. Like playing Steve's version of it is different and it's worth it. But like the whole, like, we don't want to even buy our rules. It makes it really hard. But we'll see what happens. So likely though, I found this book. So we have this kind of necromantic theme to our armies, So I found this. It looks like it's bound in skin on Etsy, like an old book, and the pages are worn. So, like for the narrative and for that, so we got that, and then it's a matter of finishing display board, the bases. Most of the models are built. Most are like 80% done. It's just kind of getting it to the finish line after years of work a little bit, sprint for like a week, and then stop for like a year. So, long story short, sputtering to life. It's like starting an old engine, kind of. Right now, we're trying to find the right oil gas mix and pulling the cord a few times. But I put stickers on my wet palette cover, and I kind of reset my space.
Cool.
Excellent. I have been 3D printing, and I've been struggling because my 3D printer keeps getting clogged. Well, initially I had an issue with the bed temp sensor. Ripped it apart, put a new sensor in. Hey, it's working again. Great. Then it kept getting clogged. It was driving me crazy. Clogged like 3 times in a row. Like I would get one good print, and I was using this filament that just printed so smooth. It just looked great, and it was this light gray color, and it just looked. Everything came out just looking amazing. And so in my head, it's like, well, it can't be the filament because these prints are great. But it kept clogging, and I'm like, what is happening? And I finally just said, screw it, let me try a different filament, and I haven't clogged since. But it was one of those clogs where I'm like taking it halfway apart to get the little tiny piece, the melted filament out of it, and it's like 45-minute process every time that happened. And
so you can't just take the thing out and blow in it like the old Nintendo cartridge. Like
it's not like and
no,
then put it back in. It's like you got a little tiny tweezers and you're pulling out like a glob of filament. It's no fun. But yeah, threw that filament away, got some new. Well, you used some stuff that I had been using. Works great. So
filament matters.
Lesson learned.
Filament
matters. Don't use crap.
I've learned so much about 3D printing. I'm ready to go. Let's
do it. Let's do it.
Your bed got to be hot and flat. Your nozzle's got to be clean. Your filament's got to be smooth.
You got
set it and forget it. Let's go.
There we go.
Yep.
You should do a YouTube video and just like give advice. That'll be good.
Yeah. And ask me anything about 3D printing.
Yeah.
And and just give you can just give an answer, whatever you think is right.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to be right.
No,
be like AI.
I'm always right.
It sounds like he's already right. Like everything he said was spot on. So I think he's got it. So he's learned through osmosis.
I'll have Chat GPT 4 up and ready for questions that I'm not sure of, and I'll be like, how do you trick somebody into believing this about 3D printing?
Make eye contact.
Because we thought the last years, because when we would do this, Josh, you and I, and then all of a sudden you'd see Ty kind of his eyes would roll back and he'd be, there was a couple of snoring, I think, that if you go back on some old episodes, what you don't realize is that was all just immediately going right in to his brain. And now he's an expert. Yeah, he's an expert.
I've got 15 printers
over
here.
Yeah.
I've got a generator that's powering my lab. I set up an Etsy.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like a side. I'm clearing like 10 grand a month making 3D printed
vases, probably
display plinth.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cookie cutters.
Like 9 out of 10 Golden Demon Awards used one of my 3D printed plinths. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now I'm printing MCP terrain, priming them, and realizing I don't have enough heroes painted, so now I got to get back to painting actual models. So
cool.
That's on my list. Troy,
my hobby's been like I took a summer hiatus too, with a lot of things. As I look over, I've had the same Zombicide miniatures sitting on my paint desk since June when I was gonna do a Zombicide event and it got canceled, and that killed any momentum I had. But as a lot of the fall stuff's coming up here, I'm going to get back into that. But what actually got me inspired, and I kind of have tried to create some accountability, is Darren Latham, GW staff painter on Instagram, has some really cool stuff. And he's done in the past, he did some really cool old, I think it was out last year around this time, he did the old Space Marine, the second edition Space Marine. And he just kind of said, hey, everybody, kind of, if you have one, find one. If you got one, and paint it up. And then he has a cool kind of contest and shows off stuff. This year, he kind of had threw out the idea for right now to kind of like find one of your old miniatures from whatever 20 years ago that you painted. And we call it like a glow up, where you like find that miniature and either another one of that and repaint it, and now using kind of modern techniques or whatever you want to do around some of that. So I missed out on last year, even in that, and so I'm going to try and do something this year, probably with one. I have so many old of the old like first and second edition Rogue Trader style, some miniatures and things like that, that I might try and pick one of those cool ones and paint it up here in the next week or so. I think that'll be a good kind of palette cleanser and just kind of a cool thing. So I tried to like, again, throw some stuff out there that I wanted to do this to get some, like I said, some accountability. So I actually put some pressure on myself to actually do it, but it should be fun around some of that stuff. So more to come. I will definitely share what I do on that, but
sweet.
Nice.
So a lot of hobby aspiration. I think that's what we all had. There was a lot of hobby
Aspirations.
Yeah, it's time. It's time to start building and painting now. Like, and really, I hate to use the old like "summer's too busy," but the last thing that I think I had time for was sitting at my hobby desk and like painting.
Yeah.
So now that we're truly like the weather just turned, like yesterday raining all day, today cold, like now I'm like, oh crap, I got to prime for the winter, the long winter ahead, so that I can actually like have enough firewood, so to speak, to like get through. But yeah, so let's talk about the ultimate hobby killer, Kickstarter and crowdfunding, and getting more to add to your pile of opportunity. I tried to like get my friends to stage an intervention for me to keep me from kickstarting another project by Simon, and I was like, I need reasons not to do this, and Josh and Troy were like, well, you just should do it. So I backed the Dead Keep, the 1 to 6 player, looks like heavily influenced by Zombicide Black Plague kind of rules, but it's more of a dungeon crawler, find your treasure campaign game with art all done, or mostly done, I think, by Paul Bonner. So really cool kind of art style. The miniatures look to be on the same scale as Zombicide. There's some goblin expansions, some cool hero models. So of course I backed it because my intervention failed. They actually enabled my acquisition disorder. I'll have to talk to my therapist for a while about some other measures to keep me from doing that in the future. And then the only other thing, I saw an ad on Instagram. I haven't validated or verified yet, but there was an old Marvel card game called Overpower, which was very short-lived, but incredibly popular for a short amount of time. And I have heard that after 10 plus years of kind of modern CCGs changing the game and doing stuff, Overpower supposedly is coming back kind of as a relaunch version of the game. So I need to validate that, but sources told me that it's out there, and I don't know many details, and I haven't actually confirmed this, but like all good news agencies, you know, if you see a story, you just chase it and you wait till later to validate it, right?
Yeah, and well, there is, if you do Google Kickstarter Overpower, there is, not launched yet, but there is the Overpower card game, a Legacy Reborn, that looks like there, and it is a CCG card game. Only thing I don't know what I'm trying to figure out what the theme is though, because the original Overpower was actually a Marvel superhero, but I don't see anything here unless it's like, but I don't, I don't, they definitely don't have a license. I don't know what they're, it's some kind of hero battle, like similar. So I wonder the mechanic or something. Yeah. So, but yeah, so we can, if you do that fact check, what we call it, Ty's thing is mostly true, something like that. Yeah, there's an Overpowered card game on Kickstarter coming soon. But Ty, if you want to play, I have more than you ever want to know of the original game back in the archives of the BoD.
Yeah, let's go.
We can dig that out and
this looks totally different. No license or heroes. Yeah. Now I'm pissed off that Instagram lied to me. But it looks like the Overpower stats and
it's like, I wonder if they have a license for the mechanics.
Just not the IP.
But not any IP on it. Yeah.
I'm seeing
so they just put like generic mythology. Yeah, it looks like different. Yeah, and then there's like some, like, I don't know, like almost horror heroes, and some, as you scroll down, I don't know, I see like I don't know, and some of that. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I have the old one to play. I don't know.
We'll do some investigative journaling. And let you know.
Ooh, an Edgar Rice Burroughs double playmat. Maybe they have some Edgar Rice Burroughs artwork. That could be interesting.
There we go. All right. Overpower.
Beautiful.
But not really Overpower. What else? What's this?
Expanse.
Expanse.
So on BackerKit, not Kickstarter, our friends at Green Ronin Publishing, who did the original the Expanse, which is maybe I'm trying to put it in I don't want to, we'll call it top 3 sci-fi series of all time. They are doing and I don't know how long, and they probably say in here, they did the original RPG for that back quite a few years ago now. Actually, before the series was finished. They're doing a new one, kind of the next version 2 of it. Also kind of brings it up to catch up with where the books ended up. I think they don't go to the last book, but they for reasons I won't spoil for spoiler some of that, but kind of catch up on and fill out some of that stuff. So again, it's one of those ones where it's kind of cool for the world and everything else like that. They even have some minis. I think they're adding some Starfleet or Starship battle stuff in there. But so if you like the Expanse, you're interested in, I think it uses does this one use their same, whatever their engine is? I think they have kind of their same role-playing engine, that Age system that a lot of their stuff's based on.
Fantasy Age, sure.
Yeah, Fantasy. Yeah, I think they have that core RPG rules that they use for a lot of their systems. So, so saw that out there. I probably backed it at some level. I don't remember what, but just to get kind of the core books, just mostly because they have some cool background and things like that. It's one of those ones, RPG I will probably read and but never play.
All right. Let's go from the pages of Kickstarter to other kind of new things or acquisitions. I don't know if I added it. I probably did. Maybe Troy did. Space Marine 2 downloaded off Steam. I started to play. I died. I was like, I'll come back to it at an easier difficulty. But the initial like cutscene is awesome. It looks like the multiplayer options are awesome. So I'm hopeful that we'll maybe do some co-op here in the near future, because it makes the old Space Marine game look like garbage. Like it's just so incredible how they have really made, and it's taken off. It's been super successful. A lot of streamers are playing it. A lot of stuff going on, and I think it's 3-player co-op, which I kind of hoped it would be 5 for like a 5-man squad. But,
Yeah, right.
Still should be fun, and
Yeah.
PvP modes, and like a great roadmap too. They kind
Yeah.
of showed like how they plan on, continuing to add content and new skins, like, different chapters and different stuff. So really not used to games releasing fully baked these days. And this, they from everything that I've seen, release just a solid game, which is not as frequent as you see these days, and kind of this early launch
And
mode on
and then
Steam, and
fix
like
it, right? Yeah.
fix
Like,
it, yeah.
yeah.
Or release a game that performs like hot garbage, and then
Right.
after 2 years it's supposedly great, but you don't want to go back because you were so disappointed at
Yeah.
launch. Cyberpunk 2077. But yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was. I'm not in the computer game world at all, but I'm sure it was a tough decision because I think a year, right? They kind of were going to release it, and then there was probably a
think
tough
they pushed
decision.
it,
Yeah, to push it at least 9 months or something like that. Because I think it was supposed to come out sometime last year or end of last year or something, and then they kind of, which I think for good reasons, they're like, no, we got to make sure this thing's kind of good, because it feels, again, everything I've heard feels like it's super successful, which is great, because if they get more money, then it means they can keep making it and things like that. And I'm like you, Ty. I've only got, I don't know, maybe an hour-ish or something that I've had on it. I keep saying I'm going to sit down and do it, and then I get sidetracked, and I'm like, because I know if I sit down and do it, it's going to be a 2 or 3 hour stint or something like that. But again, love the graphics and so looking forward to especially the co-op mode and things like that. I think it'll be a blast. Should I hit this other one? So I think go back 2 or 3 months, I talked about the really cool, I'm holding my fingers in about 4 inches wide, the D&D 50th anniversary hardcover big book that Wizards put out. Had basically, in that book, it has like the original version of like the white box D&D, the original box set, a lot of the history. I can't think of the guy's name, Jonathan. There's one of the D&D historians, a lot of stuff in there. Gorgeous book around some of that. I was on YouTube for some reason, because YouTube listens to what you like, everything what it did, and they showed, and I stumbled again. I did a video, and he talked about that book, and then he talked about a book called Blackmore Foundations, which is kind of the Dave Arneson side of the world about Blackmore, right? Which is, if you're not familiar with it, right, was the other kind of Greyhawk was Gary Gygax's world in the original D&D. Blackmore was Dave Arneson's kind of world that he kind of started up there. And so that the guy in the video mentioned this book, which and kind of I don't know if he kind of ripped a little bit and saying, well, the Wizard of the Coast book is really kind of just a repackaging of a lot of stuff that's already out there, whatever. He's like, this book, the Blackmore Foundations, which is just a soft cover, 100 some pages, maybe. Yeah, 100 pages. He's like, oh, this is all like notes and material that you couldn't get anywhere before. It is, I'm trying to think of it's a small company. I don't know if they're going to tell me. So it's interesting because it's a lot of, it's literally notes and stuff that people found in, like, it's all the people from the original group, handwritten notes, a lot of typed. I don't know. Again, if you're not looking at me on, like copies of typewritten page. The only thing I will say is it's interesting, but it was basically, I don't know, laid out by I don't know by who. Like it could have been laid out by AI 100 times better than what it's literally like very basic font. Like, I don't know, it looked like somebody took an afternoon and like threw a bunch of stuff on a bunch of pages and then sent it to a print on demand thing. So I don't want to, like, there's a little bit of like especially when you compare it to the 50th other book, which is a gorgeous, like very high production, and this is a very low production, I would say. And I feel like they could have put a little bit more into it to make it again. It's an interesting read. I would, because you're literally reading notes from Dave Arneson from 50 years ago. And interesting to see. Again, I don't, if you guys remember, there was a lot of rift between Gary and Dave over early and some of that. I think later in life, I think they did kind of patch things up in some form, but it is interesting to see how a lot of the stuff Dave Arneson did probably created a lot of the direction that D&D went and things like that. So I don't know, what am I giving it? Like I don't want to, it's qualified endorsement, maybe something like that. Again, if you're interested in that, you can just to read it. Like me, I'm just kind of interested in like kind of the early days of D&D and some of that. So I think the material is interesting. I think they could have done a little better. I think I could have got a high school kid to maybe do the layout and make it a little bit more interesting, right? I mean, it's literally like, it feels like
give it to the yearbook club and see what they can do with it.
Yeah, I don't. Right? I mean, I hate to say it. Like, I mean, there's PowerPoint presentations at work that are laid out, but right, like nowadays, like it doesn't take a lot to like make something at least fairly aesthetic, right? And some of that stuff rather than a bare bones. It feels like it was printed in 1970 is literally what, maybe that's what they were going with, is a throwback layout on some of that stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I want to share that. So again, for people who might be interested.
I have a very niche rant that I would like to dive into.
I love rants.
Yeah.
So, as some of you may know, there's a version of Magic called EDH, also known as Commander, where you have 100 cards and you have your one commander, and you battle it out. It's usually multiplayer, right? Super fun, for the most part, it's pretty casual, although there is like a competitive EDH now, so CE EDH, which is a little bit more aggressive. But they have this the Commander Rules Committee that tries to like keep things on the up and up, and like will occasionally ban a card from the format, just whatever. And most of the time it's okay. Recently, within the last day, they banned a card that is friend of the show, Elena Danner, did the artwork for, and so maybe I'm a little biased because of that, but really it's a 0-drop artifact that you tap to add and sacrifice, so it's a one-time deal to add 3 mana that can only be used to cast your commander. I think that's pretty like not that game breaking. There's a bunch of people fighting on the internet about this. A lot of people, a lot of bad feelings, and there's some people that defend this rule. Like there's some people that are like, yes, this absolutely should have been banned, which I think is crazy, especially when you have cards like Soul Ring, Mana Vault, Basalt Monolith, Grim Monolith, like even Dark Ritual, like it's like, come on, like there are other ways to do the same stuff that stay in the game, like that stick around. I don't know. I think it's totally crazy that they banned this one, but not any of the other stuff that can do similar or the same types of things. They're picking on Jewel Lotus, and it's really kind of driving me crazy. Elena created a hashtag unban Lotus, so I think that's great. It's hilarious. She did come out and say like, hey, don't attack the Commander Rules Committee. It's not. They're just doing what they think is right, and I think that's appropriate, right? But it's I struggle with this one. This one, like it's specifically for Commander. It's not gonna break anything else, right? I don't know.
It brings up a very and we could probably talk at length about a committee of sorts making a decision that affects like dollars ultimately.
Yeah.
You're you're costing stores and consumers thousands of dollars at some point with decisions like this too. So it goes beyond like, yes, do we have personal stake because a near and dear friend is the artist, and now not that her work is less than, it's an incredible card,
Right.
and people appreciated it and loved it, but it's been around for 4 years.
Right.
Like, to do this, what feels like kind of arbitrary decision in the grand scheme of things doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
It definitely impacts dollars of sales for many stores,
Right.
and people that have tried to add this to their collection. And I definitely think it is important. She said, well, discourse is fine, hate has no place. Like, people that are personally attacking these people, like, it's ridiculous to see
Right.
like the nerd rage that has been unleashed. But yeah, it's a weird decision. It's beautiful art.
Yeah,
It's a card with a lot of utility, and it's strange. It's strange how and why, but like, you see this around many competitive games where various organizations come in and kind of change the ground, so to speak, change the playing field. And being an outsider, not privy to the discussions or the reasons or the logic, it's I don't know, it's strange. But yeah.
Yeah, well, and the other crazy thing is it's not like this can be played in any other format, right?
Yeah.
There's only
it's only
Commander.
for Commander.
It's got it
right
on
you
the,
ban it from Commander. What do you just set it on fire now? Like,
But I mean, I don't, and you guys can tell. I mean, maybe I'm so out of it, but I feel like there's such a high percentage of people who play Commander like me. I'm never going to go look at some band. Like, I'm going to pull my Commander deck out and play it. Like, right. Like, this is the last format that I'm going to go check to see if somebody is
it's really right. Like, where you're playing, is it a convention? Is it a game store that follows the rules? It's kind of like, if you're looking for the standardization of the game to prevent some and I think originally the intention was to really prevent some like non-player interaction, like those feel bad moments, the things that just are so broken that you can't really prevent. Like, it's that whole intent versus impact, right? And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It's silly. The one thing I will say, Elena put a post up about it, and the outpouring of love for the card, and like, she signed so many of these, and people would post pictures of her signature on the card. Like, that was really cool. Like, it's really cool to see people like saying, oh, I remember when you signed this card for me at Origins or at Gen Con or at whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see her signature like 100 times, throughout this post. Different people replying. So
what is pretty cool is looking at the metrics. Twitter puts metrics of like a post. So it's been commented on 254 times. Not a huge number. It's been retweeted 458 times. It's been liked 2,100 times. It's been seen 287,000 times.
Wow.
Her tweet.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But
Views.
the other thing is the art's so cool. Like, it's such a cool card. Like, when I think of her artwork, like, there's a whole bunch of things, but like, that's one of the ones that stands out to me as one of her crowning pieces, right? And I just feel bad, like, that it just kind of is getting not playable, right? It's still a great piece of art, and people will still love it, right? But there's also like now it doesn't get to be played, like, and that's kind of it's a feel bad. So anyway,
I don't know what kind of license Elena has, but it feels like a T-shirt with the image and some kind of words or something might be a hot seller. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. I'm not sure
It's
what all her licensing is for what things she can make, but
it's like the books one. I'm with the band, and this
Yep.
with the books. You could do that with the
Yep.
Jeweled Lotus. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Anyway, that's my magic rant for the day.
All right. From magic rants to books and shows and what we're doing in the library. So I've got a long list. I'm behind on my reading challenge of the year, so I've been trying to do some catch up. I should probably go last because I think you guys have far more direct and succinct updates here. So, Troy, I'm going to let you start with what you've been reading, what you've been doing.
So I've been having this book floating around in my to read list for years, and I finally just like I felt like I needed this. So Kane's Law, which is the fourth book in Matthew Woodring Stover's Kane's Law series, started with Heroes Die, which I probably talked about on this podcast 10 years ago or something like that. Love it. Love it. It is such a, I mean, it's so dark. It is NC-17, that like kind of the fantasy. And it again, if the idea is it's a world, kind of a future world, kind of, Earth kind of sucks. But basically what they found is some way to kind of portal to this other world called Home that basically looks a lot like a fantasy world and actually has live magic. And what they did is have technology where people from Earth would go into that world and take on the role of an actual, like, kind of like, a fighter or a wizard or whatever. And then they basically stream back. Right. And this is interesting because, right, he wrote these books way before the whole video game kind of thing came out. But basically that's the entertainment in the world of Earth is people they're able to watch through the eyes of the actor and actors as they go through that. And so Harry Michelson, who is Kane in that world, is kind of his hero, is one of the superstars and some of that. But in the end, it's a real, like, it's not like they say actors, but they're living the real life of that thing. Like, people die in horrible ways, and he, and so it's interesting. And so it's his adventures, and this is the fourth book in that. And so it's interesting as I'm going through that and wrap it up and getting to revisit with this character because very interesting, very gray character, right? Which I love in some of that. And then I love I think I've talked Stefan Rudnicki is the narrator, and this guy has this kind of deep baritone, amazing voice. And again, what's awesome is it's in first person. Like, the book is mostly in first person. So, and I think he's done it there, but it's in some ways, right, you very much tie the voice with the character. And there's a few other books that he's narrated too, but I just love his voice. He's probably maybe that's a whole top thing we do at some time. Ty is our favorite narrators because I think there's quite a few.
I mean, is there anyone after Stephen Pacey?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah, we'd run through. Well,
that's where it stops.
That's one. Like, Stephen is on the top, but then you kind of have
I know the Jonathan.
Some of the GW, Jeremy the Keeler, some of the, and then like Stephen Rudnicki, I'd kind of put in there in my top 5. I'm trying to think, Catherine. There's a female narrator too, and so we've run through those. But I just wanted to call it. It's been really nice to kind of revisit that. Although I realized I needed to kind of go back and because this book actually starts right after the third book, so I had to kind of do a quick redump, what the heck happened, because it's probably been 5 years since I read the third book or something like that. So catch him in that. So long rant on that, and some love for Stephen Rudnicki if you ever want a good, interesting narrator. I think he does. Is he the same? I want to say if he did the Altered Carbon books also, he might be the same narrator for the first 2, and then they changed narrators in the third, and I can't. It's unlistenable, unfortunately. On that, but so. All right, Josh, take it away.
I finished up King's Arc Tidings, book 5. I think it's called Demons and Dragons, something like that. Anyway, it's just a fun series. I mean, I know you guys weren't the biggest fans, but I enjoyed it. You find out a little bit more about Reskin's backstory, and like for the first like 4 books, he's like the coolest and like the strongest and the toughest, and like he can do no wrong kind of thing. And I feel like in book 5, you realize, oh no, like once you learn about more of his backstory, you're like, oh well, no, there's others that are better and stronger and more tough and whatever, right? So it kind of like knocks him down a peg, which made me more interested in the series. Like
Which
I
should
felt like
have happened in the first
Did he?
book.
I
Did
agree.
Did he actually take a wound in this book?
Yes, yeah.
Did it slow him down at all?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you sure? All right, because I swear he broke his leg in one book and it never even like didn't matter.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, like, right? Like there's something to reading a book like that, and you're kind of like, okay, well, this is just sort of fun, but he's never gonna die, right?
When a character has so much plot armor that there's no
Right.
sense of risk, it gets tough to stay with.
right. That's where like I said, I enjoyed there was something interesting in that
Yeah.
first one, and then
The stakes were so low, though.
right?
Like,
and then it just all of a sudden it's like, wait, like
Yeah.
you guys, you need to give me something to get me to grab on again. So again, the last thing we always want to say is, right, we don't want to.
Yeah,
Enjoyment is great, right? Yeah,
enjoy
it's
what
awesome,
you
but
enjoy. And glad you liked it.
Well, and that's the funny thing too. Like, I had kind of forgotten why I set them aside, right? Because I hadn't.
Yeah.
It had been 1.5, 2 years since I had read these, and as I'm getting to the parts where he's not this superhero, right? I'm like, oh, that's right. That's why I set these aside, because it was too like he can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And then they kind of weave in all this, like, he can, he can fail, right? And there are things that and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm more invested, so I thought that was interesting. So
that's good. Maybe Calcade listened to our comments
maybe
3 years ago, and
she writes good book. I like
yeah.
And then for whatever reason, the Bobaverse books keep popping into my you should read, right? And so I was like, all right, I'll try another one. So I'm reading All These Worlds. I think it's book 4, book 3, I forget. Excuse me. And there's so many different things going on. It's hard to it's a very simple read, so it's not like, oh, I forgot, right? But there's a lot of different threads to keep track of, and a lot of different Bobs to remember what's happening. It's a good thing they all have different names and they're not all named Bob, but still, yeah, it's interesting. To think, they're all kind of replicated from this one main dude, and they're all doing all these different things. It's kind of interesting. It's a cool premise to write these stories. So it's keeping me invested. It's not like top tier, but it's good. I like it. So
yeah, it was good. It was. I mean, I think I did the first one, and I enjoyed it enough, but not enough. Like it was like, oh, this is interesting. Like they leave a lot of threads after the first one. But it was just never enough to like. Am I really like again? Too many books and not enough time. But
for sure, yeah.
It is an interesting.
I
can't remember who the author is.
I'm blanking too.
Yeah, but again, an interesting set. Yeah, that they've been able to. Again, I don't even know how many books are in that series either, but quite a few, right?
There's 5, I think, maybe 6.
6.
Dennis E. Taylor is the name, is the author. And yeah, I think I'm probably done after this one. I realized like they're fun, they're enjoyable, but yeah, there's too many books, and I don't know that I want to continue. But they're good. They're fun. So.
And speaking of too many books, now we go to Ty's list.
Yes.
Yeah, so I realized I was like 7 books behind my pace for my reading challenge.
What's your reading challenge? What's your goal this year?
40.
All right.
What did I say? 46 maybe.
It's a good clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, 46, and I have 29 done. So I'm 4 books off pace according to Goodreads, but I have 29 of 46 done. But as such, I had to finish some that I had started and put aside, and I've started a bunch because I always read probably 4 or 5 books at once. Like, it's just how I keep things fresh. And it's kind of how my brain works. Just multiple threads, and I have to be interested in something to do it. Like, and object permanence is real, so story permanence is real. Anyway, so a couple books that I really enjoyed, a couple books I didn't enjoy so much. So I talked several months ago about Our Share of Night, Mariana Enriquez. I finally finished that. I had hit a slow point in the book and put it aside, and I had about 150 pages left. So I finished that, got that done. Ended up being very rewarding. I was glad I finished it. Recommend that one. She has a series of short stories coming out very soon, or just out. That's interesting. I think translated by the same individual. So that's good stuff. And that wasn't even on my notes. I listened to, so this was really cool when I heard about it. Keanu Reeves had a series of comic books about a character named B, Berserker, I think spelled without like an E. But he partnered with who I think is one of the better kind of modern speculative fiction sci-fi writers, Chena Melville, and wrote the Book of Elsewhere. So likely Keanu Reeves had the story and the ideas, and if you're going to get a ghostwriter to write your book, who better than Chena Melville to do it? So the Book of Elsewhere tells the story about this immortal warrior that is now attached to like a special forces unit in the U.S. that's studying him to try to understand how he's made, and he is trying to find, the secret to his being. Why is he continue coming back? He's ready, not seeking death, but ready to finally stop doing this. And it is told through various narrators. Some are a woman that married him hundreds of years ago, a man that was his servant and became his friend, an enemy, a doctor that has pursued him over centuries. And you start to get his story from these different viewpoints, and then some interactions of him and the research scientists and the military unit. And there's 5 or 6 voice actors. The one that jumps. So Keanu Reeves starts with the prologue, which is cool. And then it's Michael Huisman. He was in The Flight Attendant. He's a kind of a well-known actor, does some of it, and various others. And it's I think 6 individuals that narrate. So it was a really good audible experience. The Book of Elsewhere. I enjoyed it. I think it was a cool story. Probably won't go get the comic books or look too much into it, but as kind of a standalone novel, it was really enjoyable. And Chena Melville is a great writer. So the pacing is really solid. Think I've talked about Matt Haig, Haig. He wrote The Midnight Library. I went back and read one of his older books, I think early 2000s, 04, 05-ish, called The Humans, which is about an alien that is sent to Earth to stop a mathematician from figuring out kind of this prime number problem, because it unlocks technology humanity is not ready for, basically, is the idea. So he becomes this person, kind of takes them over, but doesn't have the memories and has to find and stop. But he, in his mission, he's told to destroy people that know about it or things. And he starts to learn about humanity and what makes humans tick. And near the end, he writes a letter of instructions for the man's son, who has become his son, about what is important about being human. And it's a list of 80 sentences that I kind of want to just print and put on the wall. Some of them I was oh, is there some dust in the room? Oh man. But like I read the book in a couple days, in a couple
Yeah.
sittings, and it, you know, some of his stuff gets a like Midnight Library at times whitewashed over kind of some pretty heavy themes, and like this though really kind of captures like what it is to be human and why that's important. So I'll just as a side note, if you guys don't read it, I'll find the pages of like here are the things, you know, his message of what to remember, what's important, what he learned about being human. So that's The Humans by Matt Haig. Now we get to the Christopher Buehlman section of the library where I continue to just rave about this author and how I cannot stop consuming everything he writes and loving it, genres I never thought I would like. But I listened to The Daughter's War, which is the second book after Black Tongue Thief, which is a prequel that talks about the character Gelva. I won't go spoilers, but it's a military novel. It talks about a soldier at war, who they fight with, their unit, their birds, this unwinnable struggle against this overwhelming force. Like, and obviously I don't have any military background, but I've read a few reviews. I've seen some comments from people that are like, they don't know how Buehlman captured it, like, but the sense of a soldier's duty and like the honor and the, you know, just the effect of combat on a person and what it does, because Gelva enters it as a young kind of sword maiden in this unit and leaves it this veteran of this long war that you see in Black Tongue Thief. And it tells her story of how she changed during the Daughter's War. Incredible. Like, I don't give a ton of 5-star reviews. Most books, if I finish them and I think they're good, get 4. Some I'm like 3 if it was a struggle, but it was like an auto 5. It was like done. And then I also got another one of his books at Barnes & Noble from when he was writing horror novels. It's called The Lesser Dead. It's about a vampire in New York City in the 70s, a very like fiery time. But he's like 60 years old, but he is in the body of a 14-year-old boy when he was turned. And it's his story. It's called The Lesser Dead. So far, it's awesome. Like, once again, I don't know how Buehlman did it, and I don't know how I hadn't heard about him more since Black Tongue Thief. Like, I've been on this Buehlman journey between two fires, like, and I just, everything's a hit. I'm worried I'm going to get to a book that I don't like of his, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So really enjoying The Lesser Dead. I started another one. It's like post-apocalyptic. I saw it on a list somewhere on like Goodreads or something, so I downloaded it through Libby, the library app on my iPad, and it's called The New Wilderness. This woman's daughter is sick in the city. Humanity, like climate crisis, life is kind of contained, so they start this program to have people leave to go to the wilderness state, which is kind of this zone of like national parkland, which is now all wilderness and wildlife. But they have to live kind of like nomadic hunter-gatherers, traveling from point to point. And she takes her daughter into the wilderness in hopes that her health will improve. And, you know, that, so it's interesting story about how humanity is adapted in this program, but you're trying to figure out like how the government functions, or there's these rangers that tell them where to go and what they can do at these outposts. So it's interesting. You know, it might end up being a 3, but we'll see. Man. And then Bernard Cornwell wrote The Winter King Arthur stuff. And then I heard that the second book is really like the best book in that series, and that's Enemy of God, which continues his King Arthur story, told from the standpoint of this warrior who becomes one of his trusted friends called Derville, who is now this story is starting to focus on Merlin's kind of quest for the cauldron, the 13th treasure that will save Britain, bring the gods back, and keep the Saxons away. Well, we know what happened with the Saxons in England, but it's a kind of a grittier, not really historical, but and Jonathan Keebler is the narrator of those books, so it's fantastic to listen. So that is Enemy of God. I think that might be. Oh, Troy, you're not going to like this. I had to put down Harrow the Ninth. I really liked Gideon. I'm really struggling with Harrow.
Oh yeah,
it has the, I don't know why or what, the pacing is so slow. It's like you're trying to figure out what's happened, and it's so drastically different. Like I had to go back and read the end of Gideon a couple times to just try to remember like why and what and how the hell, and it's not making sense, and I'm confused, and I'm struggling in it. So I put it aside. I'm about 200 pages in, and I had to go, okay, I'll come back to it. Because
the only thing I think the trick is you need to turn off your brain to have it to, you have to be okay with it not making sense, and kind of like say and kind of have a leap of faith, like she's gonna bring me back at some point, and that's what got me, like, through that book. You're like, come on.
I'm like, what did I miss?
No,
why
and I
is
remember
this
that exactly.
happening?
Yeah, and you just have to, like, in some ways, like, embrace that, like, realize that that's part of what that's it. You're actually having, I think, the reaction she entirely wants you to have.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand. You're like, wait, like, but that actually, in some ways, there's the payoff, right? Of at some point you're gonna flip the page and you're like, oh, like on some of that stuff. But again, there's a lot of that. But so that's interesting. Yeah, and again, totally legitimate, because that book does, it basically, you think you're crazy because you're like, wait, this doesn't, like, I thought I knew where I was and I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll hopefully, I mean, I got to finish it because I got to read 46 books this year. But after these 1, 2, 3, 4 that I have in progress, I'll be closer. Maybe pick it back up. And then I've been watching, I downloaded a few episodes for a work trip that I took recently to watch on the plane. Apple TV, it's called Slow Horses. It's based on a book. I think the 4th season is currently like being released now. But Gary Oldman is a spy who kind of runs this Slow House, which is like an offshoot of MI5, with kind of the cast-offs of the British intelligence agency. But then there's kind of this plot that affects national security, and his team is at odds with like home base. So it's this kind of like thriller kind of spy show. And Gary Oldman's fantastic in it. The cast is pretty good. And I am just near the end of season 1. Each season's only 6 episodes, and they're like 45, 50 minutes. So I think I'm going to stick with that, but I've been enjoying that. Good acting, good writing, good kind of, I don't usually like spy type stuff, but it has me interested in how the book was. And but yeah, Slow Horses.
Cool. I do have one show. Did I mention, and this is a Sarah recommendation, did I mention Murder Drones on YouTube?
I don't think so.
So this is by Glitch, which is an Australian company. They do this, I think, there's another kind of, they do like short series thing. So there's 8 episodes in Murder Drones. The 8th episode, it's timely because they just dropped the 8th episode in the last month or so, which finished the first series, which had started, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe something like that. It is an interesting, like a kind of a slash, I would say, kind of anime, but not quite. It's kind of the idea of a planet where you had these drones, and basically the humans all killed themselves so that the drones are, and it's very comical but dark, because like the drones will get killed on some of the things, and it starts off with a very, you're like, kind of, I don't know, like you think, oh, kind of a simple premise, kind of that, and then very interesting because there is, again, I watched it with Sarah, one because I was like worried, like, is this really like, is this like, where is this going? Is this on, feels like on the edge? Am I being a bad parent by allowing her to watch this? And she sucked me in and around to go on this event, like funny but dark and some cool stuff. So I will, and I think the graphics are pretty cool. It's really kind of high end on some of that. So again, yeah, you can look at the first one, you can say, yeah, I'm in or I'm out. But it's a fun little 8. Again, I think they're about 20-minute episodes or something like that you can go through. And yeah, so kind of cool. So that, again, yeah, Sarah recommendation, but totally sucked me in. And by the time you get to the end, like the plot is pretty like, wow, I actually had to like watch another YouTube video to make sure I caught all the little things in the plot because it moves pretty fast kind of towards the end. You're like, what actually happened? Kind of stuff like that. So Murder Drones on YouTube if you're looking at that. So
all right, we are gonna regroup, add a few friends in, and talk about the upcoming Anvil Games RPG Unknown Worlds with the creative masterminds, Paul and Jen DK, here in a few moments. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. And with us now, we have two very special guests, authors, game designers, storytellers, gamers, game company owners, Paul and Jen DK. Welcome to Playin and Slayin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's truly an honor. This is cool.
And Ty, you forgot friends of the show.
Friends of the show.
Yeah. First.
Yeah.
Frequent downloaders.
Friends first. Frequent downloaders. We thank you.
Yeah.
We thank you. Well, as we like to do when we have guests on the show, we've got a thing called a gamer origin story, because gaming is a superpower that unites us all and brings us together. So let's start hearing a little bit about what got you into gaming when the hooks got set, and what it was that brought you in. And Jen, I'm gonna pick on you and go to you first for your gamer origin story.
It's so funky about sort of, because you guys know we have kids that are in middle school or high school and college. When I was in high school, I was desperate to find somebody to play D&D with, and no one was playing D&D, right? So I think my first like really awesome D&D game was in high school. I finally found one person who wanted to play D&D, and then we dragged a few other people in. And he was not a very good DM, and we did really not know what we were doing, sort of at all. I mean, that's all it took for me to be hooked, And I think the cool thing about being like a grown up now with like a car and stuff is I can find people to play to game with all the time. And I don't know, it's just so cool that it's cool now. There are like D&D clubs at schools now, or kids' schools have D&D clubs.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and like learn to play stuff and gaming stores everywhere. It's awesome.
You have like adult money where you can like buy the books and stuff, right?
So much better. But I started with the red box. The red box, the red D&D box. I'm old enough to have had that. I wish I would have held on to it. Really a lot. But then I think for me, then the World of Darkness games, after like D&D kind of came and went. But when those World of Darkness games hit, man, I was so addicted to those, and still am.
Jen, were you in the? I won't date you, but were you in the first run of the of World of Darkness when that was the thing, and everybody was dressed in goth? And I don't know if you were at Gen Con in those days. And
young for that then. I was like 5, 6. I was like a little baby goth. I couldn't read the books or anything, but yeah, around there. Right. Yeah, that first wave when it was like what everyone was doing. Yeah, and I was at the Gen Con where some of the developers of the game were running games, and I played in a game with I can't remember his name now, but he was like the developer of Werewolf.
Yep, the guy. I can't remember
The
either,
guy.
but the
Yeah.
guy. Yep.
Do you remember the guy, Paul?
Yeah, the guy that you're talking about was actually William Spencer Hale. He was
William
one of the
Spencer
developers.
Hale, yes.
Not like the main
Like
guy, but
the
yeah, he
werewolf guy.
yeah. We played werewolf. That they had the hearse parked in Gen Con, and we had been playing vampire already for a year, but like it was so exciting that werewolf was going to come out then.
Yeah.
So Josh, I think that was the corner of Gen Con when we were like teenagers that we skirted around because we were scared of what was happening there.
Yep.
Yeah.
What if you would have come up to that werewolf game?
It would have been life-changing.
Yeah.
Speaking of life-changing, let's hear about Paul's gamer origin story.
Yeah. So I was also Redbox. I got the Redbox at Target, and I was 12, right? And I still remember turning left in that solo dungeon and getting the rust monster to smack my sword immediately, and just being super sad. And that's literally why and when I got a paper route and saved up all of my money for the AD&D books, because once you hit level 3, you were like, okay, what do I do now? And so Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books were like the sole reason and purpose of my very early morning paper routes.
That's amazing.
And I didn't have friends of my own to play with, but one of my friends had a brother in college, and his college friends would play, and they'd let us like sneak in and play. So
that's awesome.
So what I'm hearing is D&D, Redbox, but Paul, what really got you hooked was a rust monster.
Yeah, I mean,
that was it.
Come on, like you're like, I'm a hero with a sword and everything's gonna be cool, and then like this unique thing that I'd never heard of that it just hooked me right away, and I was like, this is crazy cool, and it's way better than just reading books. I mean, I'm actually participating. It was awesome.
All right. Now, so let's talk a little bit about Anvil 8 Games. So our show has had a long relationship with Anvil 8 Games through a few different owners, IPs, what games, So Paul, I think a few years back we actually had you on to talk Ethereum role-playing game. But what is Anvil 8 Games up to now? Where can people go? What is going on? Give us a little bit of what Anvil 8 Games is now as the co-CEOs, proprietors, masterminds. I don't know what titles you
like
masterminds of Anvil 8 Games.
So the Ethereum role-playing game is still alive and well, and we've got some supplements for that kind of cooking. But the big news for Anvil 8 right now is the new game that's coming out. Paul's developed an awesome system that we call the Pillar system, and we have a new game called Unknown Worlds coming out. The BackerKit will be live in October, and the game itself will be released in January at Midwinter Gaming Con here in Milwaukee.
Awesome.
So that's the big, and we also have a new card game called Little Demons, which will be available at Gamehole Con and also at Midwinter. And I believe everyone here has played Little Demons now.
Yeah, yes, we have. And
yes.
It's very fun. I really enjoy it.
I'm just excited to see we've seen the art, we've seen what's in the works, we've seen the rules. Like I'm excited to have like that physical copy in hand. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, and the art is just done by this wonderful young artist. She's still in art school, Lizzie Whalen, and we just had one conversation, and we said we're working on this funky little card game, and here's kind of the mood. And she started sketching, and she sketched a demon. And that is perfect. It's perfect. So the universe was just like, here you go. Here's the perfect artist for your game, which was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And we will post, all sorts of links and cool stuff in the show notes and below. I think that's what you do on YouTube. You can put things below. But wherever you get the podcast, Goonhammer, when the article goes up, we'll have some links and we'll point to a number of things. So looking forward to it. Now, though, the real reason that you two are here is to talk more about Unknown Worlds. So, Paul, I'm going to kick this one to you. If I was, some rich and powerful executive at a distribution company or something, give me that elevator pitch for, what is Unknown Worlds? Like, why Unknown Worlds? What is it? Awe us with your majesty.
Majesty.
Pressure.
No pressure.
None.
So Pillars is the system that powers Unknown Worlds, right? And it's a setting agnostic system designed to allow as much narrative happen as possible. The idea of the Pillars system holding like this infinite set of worlds that you can go to, that you can be part of, totally different genres, totally different play styles even, but everything based around this one core concept, right? The Pillars system itself is like 15 pages of the book, and then the rest of the core book is Unknown Worlds. And the main idea of Unknown Worlds is that there is our sort of known world, the world we all experience and have in our histories and in our futures, but there's also this magical world that is alongside that world, and the players get to be in both those worlds and play in both those worlds, whereas most people just live in one of them, like we do.
The boring real world.
Exactly.
So you touched on the Pillars rules in the 15 pages, but I think, since I have a little bit of experience with the Pillar system, I do want to talk a little bit about the concept of, I'm the mechanics guy. I like to break stuff and look at things in that way. And I think what was really cool and kind of early on and where it's come from are the Pillar stats. So do you want to talk about kind of those, so to speak, 3 pillars that are kind of central to the characters' stats and what forms the background of how they interact and do things?
Yeah, definitely. There are 3 pillars, obviously. They're called Blood, Soul, and Voice, and originally that was going to be the title of the game, but that seemed a little too intense, right? Like Blood, Soul, Voice, like it sounds like a metal album, so we changed that. But the pillars are still called that, and the pillars each have a rating, basically 3 to 9, and that's always the number of dice you're going to roll every time you do something in the game. It's one of those 3 pillars, depending on what sort of action you're doing. If it's a physical action, a spiritual action, or a more mental action, for Blood, Soul, and Voice. And it's also the action economy of the game, right? You have your pillars contain mana that you can spend to do magic and to do other things well. And when you take damage, you also take damage from that same pillar of mana. So you might take physical damage, from stubbing your toe, but you might take soul damage from sitting in a long meeting, or something, right? Or voice damage if you get, really dizzy or something, right? Or sick. So, there are these 3 forms of damage, these 3 forms of mana, these 3 ways of doing things. They're all, contained in that pillar. And so all of your target numbers, all of the rolls you have to make are all right on your sheet, because you always roll those dice, the pillar dice, and you always have a target number based on one of your 9 traits. And those 9 traits, 3 of them each fit into a pillar, right? So strength, grace, and endurance, for example, go into the blood pillar. Your pillar rating is the total of those 3 traits, and your target numbers you're looking for on the dice are those ratings or lower in the traits. So I designed the system partially to make Jen happy, because she rolls low no matter what system we're playing in. So now rolling low is good.
It's awesome.
But people who really love D10 systems and roll 10s all the time, they're also good, because in our game 10s are zeros. So you can roll, a 0 and a 1, and those are the best 2 things you can roll.
Yeah.
You just want to avoid 9s, but who rolls 9s?
Yeah.
I'm especially good at 2s and 3s. So,
Nice.
And those can make you happy in this game.
Rolling low is definitely something that afflicts all of us at times, sometimes more than others. So looking forward to getting Unknown Worlds to the table with these 2, and probably Bryce, who is on a parental leave from the show for a while. So, and then one other thing, you talked about the action economy and the point cost. What happens if one of your pillars is empty?
Yeah, so your pillar can empty of mana, and then you take scars instead when you take damage, or when you spend and you don't have any mana to spend. And when your pillar fills all the way up with scars, you can't roll that pillar anymore. You're still alive, you're still up, you're still active, but you can't actually make any checks. So you could float or drag yourself around or walk even, but you're not going to climb a tree with a scarred out blood pillar. You're not going to swim with a scarred out blood pillar. Anything you'd have to roll. When two pillars are down and scarred out, then you sort of drop to the ground and you're not really very healthy anymore and you can't do much. And if three pillars get scarred out, we rip the character sheet out. Unless there's a necromancer in the party, then maybe you're a ghost after that.
All right. And so you talked about the rules, the pillar system. I want to talk a little bit about how are you, so you talked about these worlds. How are you supplementing kind of the unknown worlds, the pillar system rules to give players and GMs or storytellers, whatever you want to call your dungeon master friend, to explore and to kind of learn about those worlds and prepare games?
So we're calling those field journals. The core book is going to be very setting agnostic, very boring visually even, where it's like black and white, not really much art at all. The field journals are going to be really visually very beautiful and going to bring with them the setting that you want to play Unknown Worlds in. So when we launch, we'll have 3 field journals to choose from, and those will actually sort of be, kind of straddling the gap between like a rules book, but also kind of a fun narrative book where you can kind of flip through and see lots of cool art. And it's going to look like someone assembled this book while they were trying to learn about the unknown world. So it won't be really like traditionally illustrated. It'll have just like little sketches and notes and kind of Post-its and things. And we have a wonderful layout person who's working with this, because I would have no idea how to do any of this. Her name is Jean Salmon of Salmon Designs, and she's really making it look like a book that someone stapled things into or spilled coffee on or carried around with them. And you'll need the core book and at least 1 field journal to play the game. Yeah. But the cool thing about the field journals is if you get tired of one setting or you want to try something new, there'll be a very different one available too. So you can kind of go where the mood takes you.
It gives me the feel of like a scientist notebook or something, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's what we're hoping it feels like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's cool. That's cool.
And what are the 3 settings or themes of the field journals that'll be available at launch?
The first 3, the ones that'll be available at launch, will be the small town 80s, kind of a Stranger Things, Stephen King kind of vibe. Then we'll have a Victorian Victorian London horror series or book. And one of our kids and I have been designing the monsters for that, and I think we have gone extremely creepy with the monsters. Very proud of like how disturbing the monsters in this book are getting. And then we'll have a kid-friendly, very family-friendly cottagecore book. Cool. And if you don't have kids the right age, you don't know cottagecore, but it's like super popular right now, just like cozy, autumnal, like little happy like zone. Yeah. And one of our playtest groups, the 15 to 17-year-old playtest group, invented a whole new kind of creature called a Weein, which is a small creature that can do magic. So they basically invented sentient magic doing mice, squirrels, rabbits, that kind of size. So this book will be the Weein book. The cottagecore book will allow you to play as a Weein. And the kids were at our house. They were play testing. I was just coming through with pizza, and I heard one kid say, how many squirrels do we have stuffed into the trench coat again? And I sort of put the pizza down and like backed away. But that was the birth of the Wii, and they decided there should be squirrels that can do magic. Yeah. So that'll be the third cool.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I think that's something that we had in common with the Ethereum playtests too. We playtested it with our children and their friends, and I mean, I've play tested with a lot of folks, but like when you get a group of children together and they play test something, it is magical. They don't have the same inhibitions we do. They don't care if things make sense. They just care that it's fun and cool and magical. And I mean, that's sort of the whole point of Unknown Worlds, right? It's the whole thing. Everyone does magic. Magic is everywhere in this Unknown World. So it's perfect for them.
Very cool. Now I'm gonna. It's almost like I'm guiding the witness a little bit. I feel
Okay.
like
You can ask leading questions.
I'm gonna ask questions that because I have that insider knowledge, I know. So we've talked about the settings, the field journals, the pillars. Let's talk a little bit about the character creation process. Like if Josh sat down at the table and said, "Oh, what class can I be? Can I be a fighter? Can I be a cleric?" You know, how would Josh go about creating his character? And then just because the setting is, I think, as equally important in this game and the world around, maybe we can segue a little bit into kind of that town and setting creation.
Sure. So the main idea is that every person that's playing the game is a keeper, which is sort of the term that they use to call themselves. It's sort of the generic magical term. And each one of them is on a path of magic. And the path of magic determines how you do your magic. And there are 6 paths in the core book. Ty, that probably makes you smile a little bit because there used to be more. But as we've been working with editors and layout people, they've been reining me in better than my playtesters and the board could. Basically, the book had gotten to about 600 pages.
This book would be like, 1,000 pages.
The printer was like, "You got to stop this, dude. Just stop adding things." So I pared it down to 6 paths, right? So there are, and you're going to pick one of those to sort of decide how you do your magic, right? The adepts are so good at some sort of known world skill that they're magical, right? Maybe a dancer that is so graceful and so good at their thing that they literally do magic through their dance. An avowed keeper has bargained away their soul and made vows to a patron to gain power. A channeler uses, they've kept their soul, but they make deals with spirits constantly. Mentalists are very much inspired by Stephen King stories, right? The sort of psychics, the people from, where the magic comes from inside them. And then there are sorcerers who are highly chaotic and very little, they have no formal training and they don't read books of magic. They just sort of do magic, and it sometimes does it on its own, and that's a lot of fun. And then there's wizard. The wizard path is like the, long studying, long suffering. I'm in a tower and I'm learning all this stuff. Wizard. So you take one of those paths, and then you combine that with at character creation 2 secrets, and the secrets are like schools of magic. There are a lot of secrets. I did not pare those down. I pared down paths.
Yet.
There are a lot of secrets, but that's because we want the secrets to be able to support a complete magic system. So anything you can imagine doing with magic can be done with one of those secrets. So there really aren't, hard limits on that. And then you also choose a tool. And a tool is something that, the ability to make really awesome circles or the ability to use alchemy. Right. So you have this tool that modifies your path a little bit, gives you extra ways of doing magic. And that's character creation. You pick those 3 things and then, some skills and some math and some points and you're done. And characters that are built with assets, which are the good things that add to their character. And then character advancement is just every time you play the game, you get 1 more asset. Or maybe you save up for a major asset, which counts for 2 assets. Right. But so there's minimal mathing, and there's a lot of customization because I'm not good at math, that time. But if you multiply the number of paths times the number of secrets times the number of tools, I can't imagine accidentally making the same character twice. And then each field journal is going to also introduce one more path, 1 more tool, 1 more secret, sort of setting specific. right? The Victorian London one is introducing the sort of mad scientist artificer path. The small town magic introduces the path of witchcraft, which is a path of subtlety and sort of hiding among regular folks. And also new monsters in each one, and sample monsters. But the group doesn't just make themselves, right? They also build their town in the small town magic, or their ward in Victorian London, right? A small area of London that consists of a few alleys and a few city blocks. And there's full systems for building that and populating it with cool locations and really interesting NPCs, and all of that is sort of baked into the character creation. Session 0 is basically you build a town together, you figure out where your stories are going to start at least, and then you go from there.
And an early playtest memory that I think was one of my favorite things was sitting down with our group that played Mage traditionally and saying, okay, we're somewhere new, and building this community, writing on note cards like the names of a place that really matters, a place that you don't ever go, a place that, and then Paul had this, like, he'd researched like small towns for like basically how many of this building would there be, how many of that, like what would be nearby, and
Yeah, I'm a
picking
big
like the
nerd.
mysteries that matter, and had a little map of our of our town, which was really almost more enjoyable than like creating the character, was building that sense of community, and then how do the characters know each other, because I think that's where a game sometimes struggles, is at the start, is saying, well, why are we together, where are we, why does this matter? And since you construct that, it matters right away because it's home, you've made this place. So
and that's really fun too, because a lot of times it's that's derived from a book or from the GM or whatever, and having everybody kind of pull that together, I think that's smart. I like that.
Yeah, I will triple in. So maybe that, if this is I think a really high point, because I hadn't heard a lot of the details. I think you've got Josh and I both super excited. Again, everything's are good, but this feels like the thing that really puts it over top and is really interesting. Yeah, because I feel like now, right, it's almost you're creating this thing that now as a GM, you also have something to bounce off of, right, and build stories that the characters are connected. Yeah, you got me. That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
That's right.
I feel like a guiding question that I kept giving to Paul was, how do you make this easy for someone to run? Like, because not everyone's an incredible GM or storyteller. Like, we're spoiled as a group playing with Paul, because of his skill at weaving stories and all these side characters and stuff. So I would always say, but how do we make it like accessible for somebody to pick this up and sit down with their group and not have to do all the work, not have to be.
How could a Koopman do it, right? How could Koopman do this?
But I think though that voice, Ty, that you kept bringing in and saying, like, we have to make sure that someone else can pick up this book and run the game as well as you can, was a really important one at various stages in the playtesting. So.
Well, I think that answer to that is the field journals. I think that we answered that like in the biggest way we could, and that these field journals are guides to building this kind of campaign. Like, the Victorian horror book doesn't just have the rules for all of the monsters and all the new stuff, but there's game guide advice, and there's like, here's how you do it, and here's how you make it scary, because this one's meant to be a horror game. In the 80s one, it's like, here's how you make the magic a sense of wonder, and here's how you make it so that everybody's doing crazy cool fun stuff all the time. And that's been a huge thing. And I mean, the whole origin of this game was like our gaming group, right? I've been in a lot of gaming groups over my life. I'm very old, been doing this for a long time. And the gaming group that we had together with everybody, that has become the board, right? It was so good. It was so much fun. And it was so great that all the stories, all the shared stuff we did together, that's why I wanted to make this game. Like, this is a direct response to like how much fun our gaming group was.
But we have been really aware that, I mean, this would be maybe more difficult than if someone who's used to playing or GMing D&D picks up the book, and you've got like very clear cut, this spell does this thing, and now you have a more sort of open magic system. So there's a lot of advice for GMs. I guess we're calling them GGs, game guides.
Yep.
We keep coming up with a different term. You've yet to find one that we totally love, but it is a different kind of game to run. And I hopefully we've got enough advice in there for the game guides and sample play moments. And then just the overarching, like, if it sounds fun, let it happen. Is kind of the biggest piece of advice for this game.
Troy's rule of cool.
The rule of cool.
Would it be cool if this happened? Yes. Let's do it.
It can happen.
So we started to get into the realm of inspiration, and I want to talk a little bit before I ask. So I put some questions from Troy and Josh out there because I didn't want to be the only one asking questions. But before we get to that, the last thing is I want to hear a little bit about the creative process, because that's something that I think often gets overlooked when people talk about bringing a game to production. Is how long it takes, the struggles, some of the what kept you going, and what really inspired you throughout to continue to this point, because it's been a journey.
Yeah, it has. Do you want me to take this one, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mind is.
Well, I mean, Jen and I are both creative writers by training, and so that iteration process, the revision process, is really natural, and so we are not under that sort of false illusion that we can just make something cool right away. And the fact that it's taken years to bring this thing to this point feels really natural to me. But honestly, when you ask how we kept going and how, as it kept getting more complex for a while and then less complex and through all those cycles of change, the thing that kept me going is we still had fun while we were playtesting. Like, it was still a fun game, and I drew so much energy from that, and so much inspiration from that, right? I mean, playing other stuff too, but like when we played Pillars stuff, it was like, and it's gone through so many names. Yeah. So Unknown Worlds, Pillars, it was Name of Magic for a while, right? It's been many things, but as we played it, it was just so much fun to keep playing that would always sort of refill the tank, right? As it would get depleted from long hours or very late nights of design. It would be, well, what cool thing could we do next? Or what are the kids going to come up with next? Or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think too, when you think about how very, very old Paul is and how many games he's played in his lifetime, right? I think this is finally the game that this is like his ultimate game, right? This is the game with everything that he loves. Everybody does magic, but everyone does a really different kind of magic. And magic is kind of freeform. It's not just picking a spell off a list. You have to have the creativity and the inventiveness to decide what your magic is doing. And I think in some ways, what's kept us going is that this is just like the perfect game that Paul has always wanted to see on the shelf. And like, he's finally putting it on the shelf now.
And if we're going to be honest, 100% honest, a huge part of how it's kept going is that, like, Jennifer has pulled way more than her own weight in other areas of our lives sometimes when I've had to spend hours and hours and hours, like, doing this, right? Like, we've got 2 kids, a dog, and some cats. Like, that's not easy.
Also, I'm very good at nagging people. So when we've been given pieces out of the game and of other things, and I like follow people around and be like, "You got that story done yet?" Ty, for example, I might owe us a little bit of writing, but
a little bit.
We've also surrounded ourselves with the right people. Right? Like, you guys play tested Little Demons for us and told us what you thought. Ty and our other gamers have played Unknown Worlds a bunch. And that really helps too. And that doesn't mean we haven't had times where we've been like, let's burn it all down. Like, let's burn it all down and go on vacation freaking now, because I can't anymore, And I think, as with all things, of course, scheduling is the thief of joy, and trying to get people together sometimes and be like, we need all the brains together, but all the brains are doing different things. Scheduling is a nightmare. trying to find time while we're teaching and raising kids. It's certainly not easy, but that thrill of finally finishing something and putting it on the shelf, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I can see it in your guys' eyes. Like, it's a labor of love. Like, you guys are, invested. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really excited for you guys.
Thank you, Josh.
Now I'm gonna take the back seat, and I'm gonna hand off the hosting duties to Troy and Josh, and I'm gonna let them ask some questions and just sit back and sip my beverage and enjoy.
I gotta admit to being a little scared right now.
No, these are easy ones. Although now I have more like burning in my head, but I'm gonna go with the ones I have here. So I had kind of like a little bit about what games were you inspired by this, but maybe I'll open it up a little bit. Like, what were you that inspired kind of the game? I don't know if it was also maybe books or settings, movies, anything else like that kind of inspired you around something. It sounds like, again, I don't want to say it, but it sounds like maybe different things inspired some of the field journals and things like that.
Well, I think, we are both creative writers. Like, we both have our PhDs in creative writing, and we both write fiction and some poetry when we're feeling pretentious. But like, the stories for us, we're just like total nerds for just like, tell me a good story. So there are just like watching a really good movie, reading a really good book that tells a really awesome story inspires us. And we just kind of, we get to the end of a really good TV show or something, and we start asking friends, what else you got? What's next? Because we live to like be told stories and to tell stories. So, I mean, some specific things, of course, we're giant, like Lord of the Rings nerds. We are at differing levels, Star Wars fanatics, some of those classics. But I like the 3 movies, and I would like it to stop, please. Just give me those 3 movies, please. Thank you.
So you're a huge Phantom Menace fan.
Yes.
Those 3 movies.
Yep.
Those 3, the first.
How did you know?
God, there are probably kids out there that are meaning those 3 movies. When
right.
They
Like, what 3 movies does she mean? But so like the classic, just really awesome stories, that just take you along for the ride. And hopefully, like, teach you something along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, specifics to that, like, I remember reading Ursula Le Guin like in my elementary school, and learning that like magic is that important and that cool and that awesome. Wizard of Earthsea like changed my little life,
You're not the only one. Yep. It was probably 8th grade, maybe when I read that. Yeah. And and you think about it, like, it is
that cover of that book, like with the mountainous island with all the mists and stuff. It's just like that's still. I have shivers right now. Yeah. But to go to
that shelf.
Oh, it is. To go to the games. This is about to sound like a acceptance speech, like thanking everybody, right? But like. The World of Darkness games like opened up narrative and freedom of action in a way that I think was really important. The Star Wars West End version, because it was so amazingly different from D&D, which had been up until that point the only kind of game I played. I got my Star Wars West End from a Walden Books in a mall. At Northridge Mall, actually.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Pendragon. Yep. All the versions of it, because emotions are part of the game, and that's amazing. Ars Magica, because it's the best magic system I've ever played. It's crazy and wonderful and free and narrative. And then the one that nobody, like all those everybody mentions, right? Like those were not unexpected, but the one that for me really tipped the balance and made me think, oh my God, I could make these, was Dangerous Journeys, which is just an amazing, very short-lived, very awesome game. And the magic system is not at all the magic system that I've got going here or that I actually play with, but it's almost more of a scientific version of magic, and it is glorious. It is amazing. And I mean,
Dangerous Journeys,
was that Gygax, so
was that the guy I was saying? That was the guy. That was Gary's kind of after. Okay. Yep.
I mean, and Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax were together at that table, and there weren't that many of us, and it was amazing. I was kind of too young to really appreciate what I was doing, because that happened, back when Dangerous Journeys was released a long time ago. But yeah, it's an amazing system, and yeah, there's just so many, and so many games that I own I've never played. Right, there's so many role playing games like on my shelf, and I think the field journals are going to be the kind of book that, like, even if you don't play it, like, there's a story in there, and there are cool things to see and cool, like, magic to understand and new ways of doing magic, and those are the kind of books I would have bought even if I couldn't find players for it, because that was my reading material for a long time, was all of the different role-playing books that I owned.
No, very cool.
So kind of diving off of the storytelling theme, right? My question originally was, what are the main drivers for story? Like, is it the GM, or what would you say, gamer's guide, or the players, or dice, or whatever? But it kind of seems like it's all of that, but mostly like the players and the GM. And does the GM even need to be there? Like, it seems like the GM could be a player, right? Like, I don't know. I guess that's sort of my lumped in huge question.
Yeah. Well, there is.
It could evolve that way, couldn't it? That there's a sort of like, if you have enough, when you created the town and you created the characters, you have enough story hooks. You could almost sort of rotate sort of who brings up which story hook when.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Ars Magica did that, right? They did troop style play where everybody made a wizard and everybody made some hench people, and you took turns. And of course, I think the reality is, in most groups, there is one poor sod who is sort of like fated to be the eternal game master. But with this game, like, sometimes it's not clear to me when we were playing in our old games, and sometimes when I'm playing Pillars, I'll often run an NPC alongside the people, and it will often happen during the game where there's a very fuzzy line between who's running this game. Like, who's in charge here isn't the game guide. The game guide is just there to adjudicate like weird like dice rolls or whatever, but like everybody's making these stories. Like,
sure.
It's the table, or more likely in our case, the living room, where we're all sitting around comfy.
I think to that point, having played Mage and Unknown Worlds over the last decade.
Yeah, that's fair. Decade. Wow.
It is truly, like, I think the new kind of collaborative storytelling is kind of how it's referred, but it was really an organic kind of process to like start the game, find the group, and then tell the story. And I think now when we play, sometimes the game rules are agnostic, right? Like, we might be playing Unknown Worlds, we might be playing Mage, we might just be sitting around pretending to be our characters, like talking with very few dice rolls. Like, I think years ago we stopped gaining experience in like our Mage game and just get together to tell the story and play. And Josh, I think like if I were going to sit down and run a game of Unknown Worlds, like, it would be, what do you want to do today? Here are all the options. Here are the mysteries. Here's what is out there. And if I need to pull the thread or maneuver the group towards something, you put a tome in front of them. You introduce a monster that comes to town. You like it, but it's a very collaborative. I hate that word, collaboration, but that's what it is. It's a group telling a story together, and I think this game unlocks that potential for people to feel that investment in the world. So it's not just the person that's guiding the group running the game. It's the group running the game. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What stories are important?
You only hate that word because of the corporate use of it.
I hear it
Yeah.
way too often. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those words that's just so overused that it's lost kind of any meaning to it.
Right.
We need to bring synergy back.
Oh,
teams and partnerships, right?
We have to be proactive about that, though.
Yeah, we have to be careful that we don't move the goalposts too far, though. However, I will circle back on the terminology with you later.
Cool.
Josh,
All right,
Josh,
next
why don't you
question.
ask
Save
your,
us.
ask your, Josh, ask your other
One
question, and
last
I'll come back. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say I'm planning for like a campaign, right? Like I don't want to just run a one shot. I want to like think forward. Like how long would I expect to run a game of Unknown Worlds? Like is it weeks? Is it months? Is it years? Like what in your brain? Like what do you think that looks like?
Well, this is a really easy answer because it's not like a sort of how many things did you kill, how much XP did you get kind of game. And the players level up their characters by going through 3 tiers of power. And you get to the second tier after 12 game sessions. Like no matter what you did, 12 times in, you've gained 12 asset points, and that means that you're tier 2. And then 18 more times after that, you are tier 3. And the tier 4 stuff is a future couple of years from now expansion, right? But so if you play, every other week, it's going to take you, a while to get to tier 2, but not so long that it's like, forever.
Sure.
So 12 game sessions. Of course, there is like a suggestion if your group doesn't meet real often that you gain 2 asset points per session so that you don't, if you're once a month, that way you're going a little faster. Right?
Cool.
But the each field journal actually has a campaign outline in the back of it. Not like the full stories. It's not like a module. It's way too narrative and open for that to work. But it's got a full campaign that'll take you through those first 12 sessions. It'll get you all the way to the beginning of tier 2. And then it has like the look ahead, like what things might be going on based on what has happened in this. Again, though, like the write-ups get shorter and shorter each session because there are so many opportunities for like craziness to ensue or characters who have gone off in a completely different direction.
Sure.
Because it is the opposite of the game on wheels, or on rails. It's got wheels, not rails.
Game off the wheels. With wheels.
The variables become too much that you can't correct for it. Yeah.
And one thing that we've encountered in our mage game, because we have been playing this, I think, longer than like you're supposed to, because we're just also addicted to it, is it's to the point now where everyone can do the exact same magic. We have all filled in all the little dots behind the magic spheres, and we are now exactly the same. That won't happen in this game because there's so many variations in the ways you can approach magic. So I'm sorry about this. Her human is at camp and she doesn't know what to do. It's just like
Another
she can't
guest.
find the boy, so she just has to come and sit behind me on this couch until her human comes back. She's super upset about it. But so like as all the characters grow, you won't run into the problem where you're suddenly all looking at each other and going like, well, our magic is exactly the same. Now what do we do?
Sure. And for those listening, there was a dog behind you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, not everyone's going to have the visual.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. That'll be
Okay.
good. So one more question, and again, I'll tweak this a little bit from there based on there, is I kind of going, what came first in your kind of creation? But maybe you guys, if you remember, what was the seed? What was the seed or the core of the game? And did it survive? Is it still in the game, or was that a seed that you left behind in the editing process or something?
This one is a little embarrassing to answer. So I had just finished working on the Ethereum role-playing game. And I was thinking to myself, like, I've got to do adventures for that and stuff, but like, I need another game to make. What is that going to be? And I literally just wrote down the words blood, soul, and voice across the top of a page and was like, what if there were just 3 stats? And I was just like, and that's where it came from. So
that's pretty cool.
I mean, obviously it got a little more complicated than that. I've reined myself in, I will say. The manuscript got to about 580 pages. And now it's off to the editor, and it is a cool 320, which, I mean, for me, I'm pretty happy. And, we're going with that 6x9 size, so it's 320 of those. So,
Yeah, that's not so bad.
No.
It's not so bad.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Ethereum was 280, right? But a full-size book. So it's, You know,
It's about the same.
yeah.
More or less.
More or less. You can see the pain in Ty's face right now. Like he doesn't need all those secrets, man. I tried.
I'm just happy we're at 6 paths. Like,
Right? Yeah.
Well, and at one point, I turned to Jen a month ago and said, you know what would be really cool? What if the journals didn't actually have any new paths? And we figured out the path for every single journal we're ever going to publish. We put every path in the core book. And I stand by the fact that that would be awesome. It's just not
Oh
feasible.
my God, Paul.
I remember this is probably a couple years ago at this point. I sat down and I'm like, how many secrets are there? And I think it was something like 26.
Yeah.
And I was like, there should be like 12.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many paths are there? And you're like 13 or something, you know, and I was like, there should be like 9. So we got partway there, you know. It was
The field journals are really helping because we can be like, Paul, you know, like save that one for field journal, right? And we have a whole lineup of field journals of people working on other ones right now. So we can kind of be like, we're not making you get rid of that path. We're just putting it in the New York field journal and it'll be out next year. It's all going to be okay. Paul is a builder of the ideas. He is not a trimmer of ideas.
Well, then that's perfect because then you can add them into the field journals, like
Right,
you're saying.
exactly, exactly. And if there's one that doesn't have a home, we'll make a field journal for it.
Yeah.
I do like. I think the field journal idea came from a brunch. We had a brunch for that, and that was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. And
At that cool firehouse.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
closed.
It's closed now.
Tragically.
now closed brunch spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that really was a game changer, allowing us to like put all the stuff in the field journal and not have it be a giant book.
Yeah, because originally,
those are going to
guys,
come around 200 pages, right? Like each field journal.
the 80s small town stuff was going to be in like the main book. And then we were kind of like, well, what do we do if we want to have, you know, some other settings available? And then I don't know who specifically it was, but someone said, let's put all the settings in these separate books.
That's smart.
Genius.
I wonder who it
That's very
was.
smart.
I don't know.
Was it you, Ty?
It might have been Ty.
Ty's implying that it was Ty.
I mean, it's a small group. Chances are.
Right.
I think I may have voiced the thought of I didn't use the awesome term field journal, but I said the setting should be the expansions.
Yeah. You were also the one that had the idea, and this is a fun point to bring up too, that all of the different field journals are happening on this planet. So the ones that are sort of back in time, the ones that are more contemporary, the ones that are in the future, it's all Earth.
It's all one world, yeah.
It's all one world.
Even though it's unknown worlds, it's different settings and genres in one big cohesive timeline.
And that was Ty's big idea too. Was that the same brunch?
Wow.
I mean, I was really on that day, I guess. It must have been really good breakfast poutine.
That's it.
That or I was thinking Bloody Marys. I don't know.
Yeah, there were a number of Bloody
Also,
Marys on the table as well.
Well, like, I didn't do work, but I'm always the ideas, like, with no follow through. So this was a great process for me because I could say, Paul, what about this? Or maybe look at this, or I don't know if this works. Can you revamp that and try this again? And it was perfect because I didn't have to do anything other than read and think and suggest. Like it was
Bloody Marys and
and drink your Bloody Mary.
yeah.
Yeah, I will attest. I hear a lot of ideas from Ty. I get a lot of ideas from Ty, and there's good ones in there too. Yeah.
Sometimes you just, if I have a 5% success rate, even Troy, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, no, it's good. I try to. You're the idea guy, and sometimes I'm the do guy, but we'll see. Well, yeah.
All right. Any other questions, Troy, Josh, about Unknown Worlds, creative process, the game, Paul's favorite character ever in any of the games he ran?
Good Lord.
I mean,
I want to know, where can we get this?
Nice. So that's the big question right now, right? The answer is BackerKit. We're going to be launching a BackerKit in mid-October, and the teaser is going to be going up actually before this airs. So it's out there. It's happening, and like Jen said earlier, we're gonna have the core book and 3 field journals ready to go, and those are going to be in people's hands at midwinter, which is in mid-January. So this is not one of those crowdfunding things where we're like, hey, give us a bunch of money and we'll see you in a couple of years. Yeah. These books are ready to go, except for the art and layout. Right, the manuscript for the core book is in editing right now. We have an awesome editor who's edited for a ton of games, and she is looking at it right now. I know her first name, but not her last name off the top of my head. Her name's Carol.
It's Carol Darnell. She's
she's awesome, and she's got our manuscript, our baby. And the manuscript for the 80s book is done and ready. The manuscript for the Victorian is very close to done, and the cottagecore is, let's call it in progress, almost done, but not quite as all the way done.
That's an interesting use of the word almost, Paul.
Yeah, it is. We've got so much time. And
the kit's going to open on the first day of Gamehole Con.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I'll be running games at Gamehole Con. There are lots of events. And then at the table, we're also going to be like showing off the game and having people make characters. We're going to have a whole bunch of sheets and show how easy character creation is, and then point them obviously to the BackerKit. And there's a lot going on. Gamehole will also have our Little Demons game that we talked about. We'll be at Gamehole. We're going to pick it up from the Game Crafter on that weekend or on that week and drive right over. So yeah, it's all falling together.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Will you guys all be at Gamehole? I know
we will. Yep.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Troy, are you running any like zombie sides?
I am, and then Josh is actually running some Marvel Crisis Protocol too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're gonna try to crush people with Thanos. So.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So at times, if you're listening, the Anvil 8 table might have a little sign saying "Gone zombie siding." But we will be.
Gamehole Con, Madison, Wisconsin. We always plug conventions and stuff we're going to, but it is a great convention in Madison, October, I think it's 17th through the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
This year. So coming right around the corner. And with that, the BackerKit for Unknown Worlds.
Yeah.
And we will, of course, put all the links here, and likely have another episode shortly after Gamehole where we'll recap Gamehole and talk about it and share, maybe even some more on what's coming. And I think BackerKit doesn't call it pledge levels, but I imagine you have some cool baked in kind of tier.
Yeah, we've got some fun stuff, opportunities to make up characters or towns and get them in the book. We have actually a really cool one where you get a free 4-day badge to Midwinter and entrance into a special game on Friday morning with Paul, a game that will only be run that one time, and it'll have a catered breakfast. So that's our big fancy tier. And then let's see, just a thank you we'll have a thank you page, and then we'll have a extra special thank you page with some art and lots of fun stuff. So the basic, get the book, but also some fun things in there too.
Yeah, the thing I'm most excited about there is that idea that we can bring out get your character in the book or get your idea, if you want to design a magic item to be found in one of the field journals, you want to create a character for the field journals, you want us to name some character after somebody in your life.
Name a monster after your ex.
Right. Yeah. That's just our design philosophy, right? Is bringing in and including as many people as possible.
Right.
So it's cool that the BackerKit allows that sort of thing. That sort of add-on.
Excellent. All right. Any final thoughts, Paul and Jen? anything we left out, anything we didn't ask, other than please go support Anvil 8 Games, show up, click the likes on the social medias, everything, generate as much buzz as possible. We'll try to help you there. But any final thoughts?
No, just I think as Josh said, this new game for us has been a real labor of love, and I think it shows as we're play testing with lots of different people. Everyone's just having a really good time with it. So I hope you check it out and have a good time with it too.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for joining us to record tonight. Taking some time out of your incredibly busy run up to Gamehole Con and the BackerKit. But really appreciate you both being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us in.
Yeah, we appreciate being invited.
And then there were 3 to talk show wrap up. So, of course, upcoming events. We just talked a little bit about, I think Dragonfall got mentioned. I think Gamehole Con definitely got mentioned, but we are right on the corner of kind of fall convention season, and there are a lot here in the Midwest that are important. So, Dragonfall, heavily miniature themed. In Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Are they at the Grand Geneva?
They're at the Grand Geneva. Yep.
So go, play your Kill Team, play your Age of Sigmar, your 40K, your whatever else you can get into. At Dragonfall, I think all proceeds or most proceeds go to charity.
Yeah. Heavy charity focused. Yeah. Con, they have a really cool raffle over the years. I'm going to be down there Saturday. I'm not going to do any big events. I'm going to do a couple board games. They have they're trying to expand kind of their programming there. Do a couple board games, and I'm going to do some kind of a painting hobby class for the day. So it'll be my Saturday. And
nice.
Then I think I'm going to the water park in the evening. So
excellent. So yeah, that's October 4th through 6th, Lake Geneva. Likely drop in, get a badge, hang out. Couple weeks later, Madison, Wisconsin, Gamehole Con. Kind of such a well-known role-playing convention. Lots of incredible guests. A lot of board game opportunities. CubeCon is back. I think partnered with them for more Magic the Gathering. At the Alliant Energy Center, kind of the whole place, they're kind of bursting at the seams. But Alex Cameron and his crew at Gamehole run an incredible show. Highly recommend. Good luck finding a place to stay in Madison, Wisconsin that weekend. Airbnbs are few and far between. Hotels are non-existent. I don't know if there's a Badger game in town that weekend, but it feels like there's not a place to stay within 50 minutes of Madison. So interested to see what the crowd's like. Continues growing. I think, you guys will be running some games. I'll be there hanging out, supporting Anvil 8, floating by you guys if you need any stuff. But yeah, Gamehole. And then early November, RockCon. Troy, you going to RockCon?
I might go this year because it's finally like on it might be the return. Yeah, it might be a return to RockCon. That used to be a staple for us in the fall before Gamehole Con existed.
Yeah.
Basically, they are actually RockCon, I think, is celebrating something like its 50th year in some form or another. Like they've been again more miniature focused, but again, you'll see like more not the GW miniature, but more of the historical miniature. I think they do have a 40K tournament. They do have that thing, but definitely kind of a smaller kind of around some of that. Don't know. Our friend Dan Bears usually ends up over there.
He goes and plays a ton of Pathfinder.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think he ends up playing again. So they do have some diverse programming there around some of that. So again, I may make it down again for that Saturday. They're also pretty wide open. If that, I may just come down and run a game. I may go run a Zombicide or something.
Yeah, I mean, don't risk a Frosthaven night though. All right, RockCon, November 1st through 3rd, Rockford, Illinois. Weekend after that, Holy Havoc, Steve Herner and his holy crew running amazing narrative campaigns. Looks like there's a new table or some table makeovers going on. You want to talk about hobby glow up, come out and see all the incredible stuff that people do there. Hopefully, I talked about it in hobby. We'll see if Bryce and I make this one. Certainly want to see all the people there. So at a minimum, it's go and hang out probably for the day. If not, get our stuff done and actually compete. Because I do believe that this might be some of Bryce and my best work ever if we get it done. So that's the only question is if we get it done. Then obviously the holidays, game with your friends and family, hang out, do all that fun stuff, eat Christmas cookies, and then come the midwinter gaming convention at the Ingleside Hotel and Convention Space in Waukesha/Pewaukee, Wisconsin, just west of Milwaukee, about 20 miles outside of the city, for a weekend, hopefully unaffected by power outages and incredible blizzards like last year. But there will be a Basement of Death presence running some games. I'm going to be running some Unknown Worlds at Midwinter, helping out Paul and Jen with that, as the game will be released and out along with their other stuff. So Midwinter, big things happening at a small little convention in the middle of the cold winter. What else is there to do than come hang out and play games? And then obviously Adepticon, end of March, from the Baird Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Woo!
It's in the best place it could be.
Yep. Event submission happening now. We're starting to, so we are starting to put together more of our plan around what we're gonna, kind of whatever the Basement of Death presence is going to be there, which is going to be pretty cool and stuff. So more to come on that as we solidify those plans. But
and then that's like Q4 and Q1 in a nutshell.
Yep.
So doesn't get better than that, but there's a lot going on. It's going to be a busy few months, probably hopefully with a weekender scattered in there. So good stuff. But as always, friends, it's our pleasure to talk with you and hang out, because that's what I like hearing, is that people feel like they're in the room with us, just kind of talking about games and what's going on. And we couldn't do this without all of you. So please, your support, continue to like, subscribe, show this to people, introduce people to the show. Reviews, truly everything helps, and we do appreciate each and every one of the, even if it's just set and forget it on the download machine. Certainly contact us. Instagram.
Yeah, I think we have an Instagram
somewhere.
There's a Basement of Death, the Basement of BoD Gaming, something like that.
Yeah,
you can find us.
Look for it. We're out there.
There's like a Space Hulk post on it or something.
There you go. basementofdeath.com, the true source for all things Basement of Death, and playinandslayin.com. And of course, Goonhammer, Goonhammer Media Network. Lots of great content, amazing stuff out there. So definitely, go if you want. All of our episodes get posted there and linked. But thank you to our friends at Goonhammer as we continue to support and deliver for the media network. I feel like I hit all the plugs and all the notes. Anything else, guys, before
we will probably be back. Look for us again to come back to you probably after Gamehole will be my guess, is we will come back and talk about our adventures at Gamehole, and maybe a little bit of Dragonfall and whatever else we played since then.
Absolutely. And hope you're all doing well. Come say hi to us at these conventions, hang out, and keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying.